Number 1, which of the following best describes the business owner's policy, the BOP? Which one best describes it?
C.
Absolutely. It's a package policy with few optional coverages, right? There's really not a lot of choice with a BOP. That's why most small and medium-sized businesses like it, because there's really not anything really being left to chance there. Number 2, those eligible for a BOP include all of the following there, except for which one? An insurance company. Why can an insurance company not get a BOP?
They're probably too big.
Yeah.
What's that?
Probably too big.
Yeah, they're way too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need the CPP, right? That's what they have to have. They have to have a commercial package policy because they're way too big. Retail stores, hardware stores, and insurance agencies, yeah, they absolutely can. Number 3, the definition of occurrence includes all of the following there, except for which one?
Claim.
Yeah, and hopefully you understood why this is the right answer here. The claim isn't the same thing as the occurrence. The claim is what you filed because of the occurrence, right? But everything else here actually defines what an occurrence is. A continuous or repeated exposure to substantially the same general conditions, right? That was the definition of occurrence. And I did say an occurrence is also an accident, which is a sudden unexpected event. Number 4, all of the following are considered the basic territorial definition of a commercial liability policy, except for which one?
D.
And of course, the reason why D is the right answer here is because they're saying it's all parts of the world, even if the product was sold outside the coverage territory, and that's actually not true. Okay, C is true, so obviously it's one of the wrong answers here. All parts of the world if the injury or damage was caused by products or goods sold in the coverage territory described, right? And of course, what is that coverage territory? That's A, the United States, its possessions, Puerto Rico, Canada, international waters and airspace. And then of course we said personal and advertising injury liability also take place through the internet. That is all describing territories. Number 5, which statement is false about the business owner's policy? Which one is it?
A.
Yeah, is that only true of the business owner's policy though? No. Right, that was a really generic blanket statement, but it is true that, of course, bankruptcy of the insured would never relieve an insurance company from paying a claim, so of course A is the right answer there. Number 6, all of the following are major sections of the business owner's liability coverage form, except for which one?
B.
It's a covered cause of loss. Why?
Wait a minute.
It's a liability coverage form. Why do you not need to have covered causes of loss here?
Because wouldn't it fall under?
What is a cause of loss?
That's
It's a
a peril.
That's a peril, right?
Yeah.
Which is just
Do
something.
perils come into play when it comes to liability or only property
Only
coverage?
Property.
Property, right? So when you saw the word liability, okay, it couldn't have been a covered cause of loss because there is no such thing as a covered peril when you're talking about liability, okay? But of course, liability does have exclusions, right? Things that can't be covered. And of course, the coverages and the general conditions or the provisions, right? Remember, conditions and provisions were the exact same word. Number 7, medical payments to others under the business owner section 2 coverages are provided when?
Regardless of.
Yeah, regardless of fault and negligence. That's why we like it, right? That's the one that pays out regardless. Same way as section 2 did underneath our homeowners coverage as well, right? These paid out the exact same way. Number 8, the BOP, business owner's policy, special property form, will provide coverage on what kind of basis?
Direct principal off with a named exclusion.
Named exclusion, right? Because of course it's a special property form, so it's a named exclusion form. Number 9, under the commercial property coverage form, the broad cause of loss excludes all of the following except for which one?
C.
Animals that are boarded or animals that are for sale. Why? Because animals that are boarded or for sale are considered to be what?
Oh, right.
Inventory, which is a form of,
CPP.
not CPP, business personal property, right? C is an example of business personal property, and of course, that is covered. That's not an exclusion. But maybe another way you could have got to this right answer here was looking at A, B, and D and recognizing that these are some of the more common exclusions that we've seen in the last couple days, right? Government action, faulty zoning, building ordinances, Those were all exclusions yesterday. They're still exclusions today. Okay. Number 10, a building valued at $150,000 is insured for $100,000, but with an 80% co-insurance requirement has a $1,000 deductible. A lot of numbers in that first sentence there. How much will the insurer pay though if the building is totally destroyed by a covered peril? $100,000. All that mattered here was how much you insured the building for, because it was a total loss, right? And that's all that they're going to pay out. Doesn't matter if it was underinsured, which it was, but who cares, right? It was a total loss. Number 11, two people are insuring a building for $200,000. There's an 80% co-insurance requirement, and the replacement cost is $300,000. The policy contains a $1,000 deductible, and a fire causes 10 grand in damages. Man, there was a ton of information in those first few sentences, right? Yeah, you didn't need any of it. Because the insured states on their application that the building was used as an office. Oh, wait, but it actually was being used to store flammable material. So, which of the following is the correct amount paid?
D. Nothing.
Nothing. Because they misrepresented what they were using that property for, right?
Yep.
And that is a material misrepresentation. That directly affected the coverage, didn't it? So of course, nothing gets paid out there. Number 12, the builder's risk coverage form under the CPP insures what?
Physical damage to the insured building.
In the
Course
of construction, not after the building is complete. Because remember, D is building coverage, not builder's risk. Got to know the difference between the two. Builder's risk is insuring the building while it's being constructed. Number 13, Bill runs a daily paper and doesn't want to shut it down if a loss occurs. The type of insurance that'll help him continue at another location is called what? Extra expense, also known as relocation insurance, right? That's what we called extra expense insurance, is relocation insurance. We try and get compensated for those expenses. That way we don't have to shut our business down. Number 14, a business which accepts property of others for repair or service can insure that property by buying what? Bailey's Customers Insurance. That's right. Making sure that any property that's dropped off in your care will be covered. Number 15, the common policy conditions of the CPP states that the first named insured in the event the policy is canceled means that what?
The first name will be paid for.
They get returned on the premium. Why? Because the first named insured also paid the premium, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right? Because they paid the premium. Would it make sense that they get refunded? Of course it would. Number 16, how far from a business premises is its inventory covered? Within
100 feet, whether or not.
whether or not it's in a vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Within 100 feet, whether or not it's in a vehicle. Outside of 100 feet, can I still cover it? Sure can, but then you're going to need probably an inland marine coverage to cover it, right? So underneath the nationwide definition of inland marine, which of the following situations would coverage under inland marine policy apply?
D.
It's D.
That one.
Why are A and B wrong? Because A and B are both describing what?
Store.
Inventory.
Oh.
Which is a form of what?
Business property.
Business, personal property, right? And remember what I said about inland marine. If it can be classified as business, personal property, can you insure it with inland marine? No, you can't, right? That's why you've got to know the difference between the two. And what is C? Where would you cover that?
Oh, Bailey's.
Well, that's not Bailey's insurance, that's what?
Garage keepers.
Garage keepers, yeah, garage keepers, yeah. Garage keepers is a form of Bailey's insurance, but I prefer you know that term, garage keepers, yeah. All right, of course, an article of clothing left at a dry cleaner's could be covered underneath inland marine because that form of inland marine is a Bailey's insurance. And remember, Bailey's insurances can be covered underneath inland marine, okay? Number 18, all of the following are insured in your commercial policy except for which one?
A.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense, did it? Right, I can own stock in a company and not be on their board of directors. That's not gonna make me an insured, okay? But of course, sole proprietorship, all you have to do is be named on the deck page, partner, spouse on the deck page, and of course an employee of the business while they are doing business, right? In the scope of doing business, of course, they are gonna be an insured. Number 19, commercial exposures in the general liability field include all of the following here except for which one?
D.
Because D is what?
comprehensive, which is just, yeah, what she said.
Property damage?
Nope.
No, personal,
Personal liability, that's why, right? Personal liability. If you're talking about personal liability, what are you discussing? That's homeowners, right? And homeowners and commercial are two completely different things, right? But everything else there, premises and operations, product and completed operations, those are the ones you should have easily eliminated because we just got done talking about them. Now, contractual liability, is that true of only commercial? No. That also applies to personal as well, doesn't it? But does it still apply commercial? Absolutely it did. We made a very big point of discussing that. But comprehensive personal liability, you're talking about homeowners, so that can't coexist. Number 20, the operations coverage part covers losses resulting from what?
Okay.
Operations away from the insured's premises. Guys, if you chose D, it's because you didn't read the whole darn thing, because D actually says completed operations away from the insured's premises, and that's not operations at all, right? That's completed operations. That's what we're talking about in 21. You got to know the difference between the two. Okay, so the completed operations hazard would cover A, operations completed by the insured at a job site, which is correct, but it's not D. Sometimes people choose D. Why is D actually wrong here?
Because operations is off of the premise.
Exactly. Operations completed at the insured's premises would actually be covered where? Under premises coverage, right? Doesn't matter if they're doing the job on business premises and someone got hurt as a result of them doing that job, that's still got to be premises, okay? Remember, if it happens on business property, it's premises no matter what. Number 22, under the occurrence form of the commercial liability policy, what has to take place during the policy period? The occurrence does. That's why we call it the occurrence form, right? Remember, the differences between occurrence form and claims made form is what has to happen during the policy period. All that has to happen under the occurrence form is the loss, right? That's the only thing that has to happen. But under the claims made form, not only does the loss have to happen, but the claim has to be made as well, okay? Number 23, which of the following best describes strict liability?
C.
Yeah, liability without regards to fault or negligence, right? We used that term when we talked about Black & Decker lawnmowers yesterday. We used it again today. Doesn't matter what they're using the product for. If they get hurt by it, you are responsible, okay? Strict liability, whether it was without regards to fault or negligence. 24, all of the following are covered under a personal injury liability policy, except for which one of these? Which one is not personal injury?
Copyright.
Yeah, copyright violation. Where should that have been covered underneath?
What?
Advertising injury, yeah. Right, advertising injury is where copyrights are covered, but when you're looking at defamation of character, slander, or someone being maliciously prosecuted, all three of those will be covered underneath personal injury, right? We gotta know the difference between the two. So personal injury, of course, is when someone's character gets hurt, but if I copyright, if there's a violation of a copyright, that's advertising injury. Number 25. The definition of robbery includes the taking of an insured's property by all of the following there, except for one of them. Which one is it?
C.
Because of what three key words?
Because it's forced injury after hours.
After business hours. That is not talking about robbery. That's talking about what? Burglary. Yep. You got to know the difference between the two, okay? Between robbery and burglary. I used to think they were the same thing, but they are definitely not. All right, 26. A personal injury liability policy could be used for which one of those circumstances?
C.
Yeah, C, wrongfully evicting a tenant? Of course, yeah, you better have a good personal injury policy in play in case you get sued because of that. We already went over copyright violation, so we can cross off B. What about A, property damage to others? What that's going to be covered underneath is going to be what?
Personal liability.
Personal liability, right? Look at 27. That's what we kind of did there.
So what?
Personal liability, remember, is bodily injury or property damage, isn't it? Okay, so bodily injury or property damage to others. That has to be a personal liability coverage. So we kind of went through all three of those. We know what property damage would be covered underneath. That's personal. We know what copyright. That's advertising. We know wrongfully evicting a tenant. That's personal injury. What about unprofessional advice? What kind of liability policy would you need to cover yourself from unprofessional advice?
Professional liability.
Professional liability, yep, good job. And more specifically, what would that call? That was E and O, okay, just to help you remember what that is. That wasn't listed here, I'm just trying to work on your powers of recall here, that's all I'm doing. Number 28, a customer trips over a cord where?
In the grocery store.
Do you need to know any other pieces of information? No, you don't. Because if they tripped over a cord at a grocery store, what has to take place? What has to cover them?
A
The
premises.
premises coverage, right? Because it happened where? At the store. Look at 29. A food cart gets away and hits a customer. Which of the following is correct? Well, this should have been pretty easy just by process of elimination, right? Because as you're looking through A, B, and C, you can't choose any of these, right? It's not personal injury. No one's reputation got hurt here, right? It's not employer's liability because it's not part 2 of your workers' comp, right? That's not a common law claim made against your employer. And it's definitely not professional liability, right? No one gave bad advice here. Okay, so here's what you did. You eliminated A, B, and C because there's no way. Now look at D. It says premises liability will respond. Do we even know where the food cart is? Do we know where it is? Do we know if it's on business premises or not? No. But here's an example of an answer that's not really the best answer possible, right? Because it didn't give us enough information, but it by far was the best answer available. Number 30. A plumber, while working, causes damage by dropping a heavy tool on a customer's bathtub, which causes it to break. Consequently, water leaks through and damages the floor, the drywall, and carpet in the basement. Which of the following would not have been covered underneath his premises and
The
operations?
bathtub.
Why?
Because it's not an actual part of the structure, I guess. Because the premises and operations, 'cause isn't he working on the plumbing, which is part of the building? but-
Okay.
But the bathtub,
You're on the right track now. For a second there, I didn't think you were. But what did we do? When the plumber came to our house, what did we do with that bathtub? We gave it to him, didn't we? We kind of told him, this is his now. He's going to work on it. And while it's in his possession, while he's working on it, if anything were to happen to it, who would have still had to have paid for it? We would as the homeowner. Why? Because his liability won't take care of it because it's in his care, it's in his custody, and it's in his control. Right? We have to remember that care, custody, and control exclusion. Now, he could have purchased an additional coverage that would have covered the bathtub. What would it have been? You bet.
Yeah, okay.
You bet. Do you hear what she said?
they,
Bailey's insurance. Wouldn't Bailey's insurance have covered the bathtub in this case? Yeah, it would have. Because you left the bathtub in his care, in his custody, and if he wanted to protect it while it was in his possession, then he could have, okay? But that's why the bathtub wasn't covered here, but everything else absolutely is, right? And another way you can think about it, guys, did we give control of the drywall, carpet, and floor over to this plumber? Of course not, we never would have. Built by a contractor at a customer's house. After they left, a flaw in that construction design resulted in an injured swimmer. I need to obviously correct that typo, I just now see that. Which of the following coverages will apply here?
A,
Why?
because it was product and it was completed operation.
Exactly, it was done, right? They had left. The key words to this entire question were, they left. After they left, they are gone now. And so this had to have been a completed operations coverage. Yep.